Podcast. Powered by the Monroe County Reporters. Here are your hosts, Jason Harwood and Jacob Litton.
I don't know where I went here. Hold on. Am I here? Can you hear me, Jacob?
I wanted to mess with you and say no, I couldn't, but yeah, you're there.
All right, man. Good. All right.
Part of me wanted to just let it go and see how long it would ride, but
All right. Well, I don't see my video, but we'll figure that out in a second. Welcome back to another episode of Talking Grit. I'm Jason Harwood, and with me is Jacob Litton. First, let's start with you, Jacob. How was your weekend?
well, I worked this weekend, so it was long. But you know, Father's Day on Sunday was still nice. I worked, but got some good love from the family. Spent some time with my dad and everything. So overall, it was okay. You know, how was it for you? This was your first time working this weekend too, right?
Yeah, I worked from home. It was different than what I was expecting. It was a lot busier than I was expecting. Not nearly any downtime, but didn't have to deal with any phone calls. It was just me sitting there, having you yell at me about watching or listening to the Tiger game.
Yeah, no. If you guys are wondering what happened to the Tigers, it's because Jason decided to watch the game when he was supposed to be working, and he jinxed them.
Yeah, no, I'm certainly not watching them while I'm working, but I definitely have them up and I'm listening. And
Okay, yeah, be careful what you say here.
Yeah, exactly.
Quote unquote. Jason wasn't watching the game, but Jason was fully locked in on those prescriptions.
Yeah. I was listening to it, but yeah, Sunday was so uncharacteristic. Their defense just let them down, which was crazy. But I don't know. They'll be back on top. They'll, it sucks. They lose 2 games and then have a day off. I hate that.
Yeah. Can't bounce back right away. That's okay.
But we'll be all right. So, all right, man. I'm excited to talk to Lions stuff with you. We are in the downtime of the NFL season. But luckily for us and for you, the listener, Jacob came up with a really good outline. I was surprised today. I went to go look at it. Like I said, I worked all weekend. I was going to look at it, and you had it good to go, man. So I didn't have to do anything.
Yep, here you go. The work I had to create it on my own. It wasn't just laid out for me. So
I know. So it was good. So we're gonna start out lead off talking about Tristan Colon, the new offensive lineman the Lions signed. Last week we had Jeremy on. We talked more of the NFL rules, so we didn't really talk anything up to date about the Lions. So it's really been 2 weeks since we've done a show about the Lions. So this will be good to get into that and talk about him. Also, PFF dropped their positional rankings. Definitely some stuff to talk about as far as where the Lions come in ranked in some of those positions. Whether they did good or bad, that'll be interesting to get from there. And then an interesting topic that you came up with, and a question that you came up with, Jacob, was Dan Campbell already the greatest coach in Lions history? So I'll be glad to get into that. First, let's start with Tristan Colon. So why don't you just introduce to one of the newest Lions on the roster?
Yeah, so obviously Frank Ragnow retired. We kind of talked just briefly about if we thought we were going to sign someone or what we were going to do. You had those list of names. We're like, well, we're not sure if we're going to do anything, with any of those names. And I think this guy was like 3rd or 4th on your list. And sure enough, we do sign, Tristan Colon from the Cardinals. Somebody that does have experience at center and guard. So, somebody brought in to compete. I just think it's interesting, right now in training camp. I guess we'll just get right into it. In training camp, do you think he has a starting spot right away? Where do you think they put him to start? Day 1 training camp.
Day 1 training camp. This will be interesting.
Right. Because, you got the battle, and I know it'll be a battle before, week 1. But, day 1 training camp, he's first in there. They're first lining up. Do you think he gets first crack at it over the rookies?
I don't know.
Right?
This is interesting. Tate Ratledge being a 2nd rounder. Usually it's a 1st rounder. They'll push him right out there. Anyone below 1st round, the Lions are typically slower. However, they were already pushing Tate Ratledge as center in minicamp. I'm not sure where. I betting that Colon doesn't start out starting. I'm betting that he's on the 2nd team. We'll see, but that's why I'm betting that he'll start out with.
I kind of feel the same way. If they had Ratledge already like in OTAs, they had him at center, they wanted to see him at center. I think that he's probably going to be the one that gets first crack at it, but also to get that experience and get those reps in.
Yeah.
Because Cologne, so last year he rated 71 overall on Pro Football Focus. No sacks allowed. Most of his snaps were played at right guard. He did have like a handful of snaps at center, but he played in 17 games last year, 7 starts. He is a veteran, so he's got that going for him. And then, his first couple of years for the Ravens, he primarily played at center. So maybe they brought him in, to compete at center, but they also could have brought him in as possible, right guard. I definitely don't think anything's being handed to him right away, but it's just, an interesting discussion to have day one training camp. Like, you got this 5-year vet. Does he come in after the rookies? Where does he line up here? And then, does Graham get any snaps at center? What do you do with Graham? Does he just get that spot? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I think, they'll obviously have it. I don't think they'll have a really good idea of where they're going to start out with, but they'll have 4 games to play with as far as the preseason, which will be good for Tate to give him extra in-game reps and just kind of get used to. I mean, I know it as a regular season NFL speed, but definitely get used to some NFL speed as far as, the quickness of the players and, in-game reps. I think that'll be helpful for him and that'll be interesting because typically we weren't playing any of our starting offensive line in the preseason, but this year I expect Mahogany to get snaps. I don't expect Decker or Sewell to play at all, but
No.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Graham play, especially if they're trying to gauge whether he's still a starter when you got, Mahogany, now Cologne, Ratledge is in there. So it'll be, I wouldn't be surprised to see Graham play a couple different spots.
I mean, that's interesting because you know what you have with Graham, but right, if he's battling for a starting spot, do you put him out there? Because then you don't really have, if Penei and Decker are out there, then you have the offensive line as a unit and you see how they play with each other.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not going to have Decker, you're not going to have Penei out there, which you don't really need to, right? I mean, we need to see Manu out there. We got young guys, we need to see what they have. And we don't want to risk injury or anything like that. So, yeah, I mean, that's a toss-up for me, too. Does Graham have to win the starting spot during these preseason games, or does he need to show out in practice?
Yeah, I think that just brings up an interesting point that I guess I really haven't thought about. Getting the 5 starters together and playing, is it important to have any preseason snaps with that? We've been in a comfortable spot the last couple of years. I know that Zeitler was new last year, but, proven vet. He didn't need that much. He's playing in between Frank and Penei. That spot's pretty, was pretty locked down. Now it's, without Frank in there, it's kind of more wide open. So, in between Decker and Penei, it's going to be a whole new 3 together. And how well are they going to play together? So, will they play in the preseason at all?
Right. I mean, that's my only, is practice enough reps, or do they need to get out there and try to see what they have as a unit? Mm-hmm. And you're right. I mean, Frank was a huge piece. Just center is an important position, and Frank was really good at it.
Yeah, I know. We've had 2 weeks to really kind of think about what it's like without Frank. I mean, when we first came on the podcast, we had just got the news that day, right? So when we discussed it, we were kind of just going through the motions, like the immediate emotions, and thinking about the long-term stuff.
The first stages of grief.
Right, exactly. We've had that podcast before, right? What stage of grief are you in? With Frank, we're finally going to reach acceptance that this is for real. And one thing that I saw, I know that you knew about this podcast, but maybe you didn't see it in full. The Brad Holmes went on the Green Light podcast with Chris Long. That's a very good. Chris Long's a very good podcaster. If you never watch his podcast, I do like. He's very knowledgeable, and it's just a very good podcast. So Brad Holmes was on there, and he was asked the question, what do you look for in a center? And the 3 things that he came up with initially were intelligence, personality, and communication skills. And he really harped on the communication part. So I think they'll be really looking for that in in training camp is, how well are they communicating? Who is doing that? Are they going to rely on the guard to help out? Like, say, Tate is the starting center. Let's just say that happens. They're going to have some experience on at least one side of them. If it's Graham or Colon helping them out with the calls, I think that's pretty much a given based on what Dan Campbell had said before and what Brad Holmes is saying here.
Right.
He also said the ability to anchor, to be able to, lock down that position. I think that's a given, obviously, with the center. And he also said you need a fair amount of quickness, which means get up to the second level. And he talked about, getting off the snap and then having a plan in place. Getting to the second level quick is one thing, but he made the example of linebackers dipping underneath you and getting by you, then it doesn't matter how quick you are. You have to come up with a plan. So I think that speaks to a little bit about Tate Ratledge, whether he's going to be able to get to the second level, and then also is he going to be experienced enough that he's going to be able to do that right off the shoot. So that's going to be a tough thing for him, I think, to show that he could do that right away, like week 1.
Absolutely. There's going to be growing pains that come with that, inevitably.
Yes. So, and other thing I thought Brad Holmes said interesting in that interview was that Frank Ragnow was actually the first player to text him when Brad Holmes got the job. So it just speaks to what type of player Frank was and what type of team guy he was.
Absolutely.
We're gonna miss him as a person as much as a player in that locker room.
Was Frank the second longest tenured Lion to Taylor Decker? Is that right, or do you know? Because after you said that, I just realized, I think he was up there.
Well, he's 7 years. So what? I mean, Graham too. Well, think about Graham. I mean, Graham left and came back. So I don't know what you're going to count there. And then Taylor. When was Taylor drafted? I'm not sure where we're at with Taylor.
Taylor, I think, is in year 10.
So
9 or 10.
I don't think there's anybody else, player that would be longer than Frank.
Right.
It's the old guard, as they say. Yeah, that. Another thing I think that maybe we're discounting too is Jared Goff being able to take some of the slack as far as like the calls. He'll be able to help with that. Having an experienced quarterback behind him, I think we'll be able to do that. Just leaving me, man. Leave me.
I was sick of you talking. I had enough, but I changed my mind.
Get out of
here. I tried to hit the chat button, and I don't know if somehow it hit leave.
Oh, all right.
So sorry to interrupt. Jared Goff.
No, I was just gonna say Jared Goff. Someone just texts us, nice cameo, guys. I don't know if that's
I was trying to hit the chat to see what that was, and then it left. So now I don't want to hit chat again just in case. I don't know what that glitch was.
Yeah, I don't know if that's Jeremy or not. But anyways, Jared Goff is going to be able to take up some of the slack for the offensive line. Being able to make some calls at the offensive line, having that experience there will help. So, I'm not discounting the fact that losing Frank is not a huge deal, because it is. It's a gigantic deal for the Lions, but it's not an insurmountable loss that the Lions couldn't move forward from. It's going to take more than one player to replace Frank, all the things that Frank would do.
Yes. And now we're really banking on Ratledge, second round pick, hoping that he really, gets up to speed quickly.
Yep. All right. Also in that interview, Brad Holmes talked about Tyleek. What was the news first before we get to Brad Holmes? What he said about Tyleek? What was the announcement on him?
Yeah, so Tyleek already changed his number. Jersey number. He started off with 78. And, that kind of was a thing where he didn't like that number. We all knew he didn't like that number. Knew that probably during final cuts and everything like that, he was going to get a different number before the season started. And I don't know what kind of competition or what kind of money he offered up, but for whatever reason, Levi gave number 91 to Tyleek Williams. So they figured out something now, and now Tyleek's wearing number 91, which is what he wanted from the beginning. I have not seen what number Levi is switching to yet. But yeah, just interesting because typically that does not happen, like right in the middle. Yeah. That would have been something decided before he even picked the number, or it's after the final cuts.
Yep. No, he wanted that number 91. He didn't want to wait for, we weren't going to cut Levi. So if he wants 91, he's going to have to figure it out right now. So
right.
Glad he
maybe Levi gave him like 10 different tasks he had to complete.
He should. Levi's been on this team for a while. He's the vet. He should be able to dictate it. He probably doesn't need the money. He just, make him. If I was that, I wouldn't take the money. I'd make him do crazy things for me. Give me coffee every day.
You're my personal assistant for the next couple months, and then we'll
exactly. Yeah, that's what I would be all about, man. I wouldn't even. You're making millions of dollars. I'm not worried about 30, 40,000. I'd make him do humiliating crap.
Yeah, right. No, but now, so I don't know where that leaves Levi. He has not changed his number yet, so
yeah, we'll see. Hey, apparently it's just not some of these guys' number means everything, and other guys, I don't think it means crap to them.
Right.
So anyways, back to Tyleek. Brad Holmes mentioned, the thing that we've all noticed, similarities to Aleem, like both personality-wise and just play style-wise. The thing that I thought was interesting, Brad Holmes says that coming out, he thinks Tyleek is more polished than Aleem was coming out, as far as like a 3 technique and ready to play. So that's exciting because we're going to, especially with Aleem being hurt, we're going to need Tyleek to come in and get some meaningful snaps, especially early on. And then he also talked about how their personalities are the same. And it was funny because he talked about Aleem when he called him and said, "Hey, are you ready to be a Detroit Lion?" And Aleem was like, "Yeah, sure." And Brad Holmes was a little taken back. It sounded like you're not like super excited, but I think that was just more Aleem's personality. And he said Tyleek has got some of that in him too.
Nonchalant.
Yeah.
Is that what you?
Yeah, I think it's just nonchalant or just like not overly excited. Maybe that's just
not too emotional.
Yeah, just kind of laid back and living in the moment and just doing his thing. Another thing that I think is interesting news that came out this week is Zadarius, right? How were you? I mean, I know you saw the quote. I want to be back in Detroit. So what does that mean to you when you see stuff like that?
I mean, it feels like that was, we've talked about this several times already, but it feels like almost that's just what's meant to happen. He's going to come back. We haven't signed anybody else. There haven't really been too many talks about anybody else. I don't know if he's waiting for training camp. I don't know if he's waiting for the dollar signs to go up. I don't know the story behind that, but it just does not feel like, okay, he's going to be a Detroit Lion. Even before I saw this quote, to me, it seemed like he was going to be coming back to Detroit. I thought, though, that it was going to be once training camp started, once the offers the dust settles, maybe Hutch will sign Parsons, like get all these big contracts, Hendrickson, all this stuff out of the way. And then maybe Zadarius will, I guess, get a realistic expectation of whatever kind of contract he's going to get. Yeah. But anyway, that's how I felt. And now seeing that quote, I guess that just solidified what I thought before, that he's still going to be in Detroit eventually, but there's always that chance maybe somebody throws a bag at him, and I wouldn't put it past him if if they're offering a bigger contract elsewhere. I don't think he's got those kind of ties to Detroit. His girlfriend might be upset, but
I just think it's interesting. Like, if he's trying to get the most money out of Detroit, you don't come out and say those things like, "I want to get back up to Detroit," right? Because that takes a little bit of the bargaining chip away. Ultimately, he's going to decide whether he signs or not. But it just seems like it's meant to be now. He wants to be back. I think the Lions do. I mean, why would you not want him back on your team if you can get him for a reasonable contract?
Right. I mean, that's what it was always about, though, right? It was always just about, let's get like a more reasonable number.
Yep. I know.
And he also said, like, he loves Detroit. He likes, I forget the exact quote, but he likes Detroit, likes the coaching staff. Like, obviously, it's a good team, a good situation, everything like that. And he kind of just said, hopefully that's where I want to be. Hopefully I'll be back there. Right. It was something along those lines.
Yep. And I mean, he talked about the coaching staff and all that stuff. What's interesting about Zadarius, every time he leaves a place, It's not necessarily. It's usually not on great terms.
Right.
And so he's, you know, this is kind of a unique situation, which tells you how special a place that Detroit is for him, and just in general. We know this what type of town this is, what type of team we have with Dan Campbell, who we'll talk about a little bit about later on. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just a matter of getting training camp started and getting a number, and then him coming in. I'd be more shocked. I'm over 50% now. I'd be more shocked of him not being on the team than him coming to the team at this point. Or is that where you're at?
Yes, I still feel. I mean, yes. Unless, like I said, unless somebody throws some money at him, which could happen once all these other contracts go into place. Right. But ideally, that would happen like early on in training camp or right before training camp, right? I mean, I don't want to bring him in right before. Yeah.
Unless you got an injury somewhere, I mean, if you're going to give the money, you're going to do it. You already have kind of done it. You know, I don't know, because I don't think, you know, you mentioned the high end guys other than for the Lions, like maybe just seeing how much money's left after the Aiden Hutchinson deal. I really don't think that really plays into any effect on signing Zadarius or not. You know, it's not like Zadarius money is going to dictate on how much Aiden Hutchinson gets paid or any of these Trey Hendrickson, any of these top end guys. I mean, you know, Zadarius is not in that ballpark, and if he was going to sign for a bigger deal, he would have signed with a team already. So I mean, he's going to be getting a secondary deal. It's just whether how low he's going to go, and hopefully the Lions and him can just work out something, because I do want to see him on this team at this point. I know that the stuff about Marcus Davenport, him looking good and all that, is great, but can we trust him? And that's just a big thing. And I don't think that that's a big mystery. Can we trust Davenport to, you know, be healthy? And frankly, we can't. If he does, then that's awesome. And then Zadarius is just another piece that you come in and you send him out there and he'll get the quarterback.
Right. Absolutely. My thing is just, you know, how much does a secondary contract look like if you've got Micah Parsons, Hendrickson, Aiden, like if they're all 45 plus, does that make Zadarius then bump over $10 million a year? Or does that still put him, you know?
Yeah, I don't.
They've got to. There's, you know, they've been talking about contracts. So the Lions have a dollar amount they're willing to pay. Zadarius and his agent have a dollar amount they are wanting to get. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they're not close enough where that's, you know, manageable right now. Or maybe they've talked like, yeah, you know what? Maybe a little bit later on, we'll see what happens with some of these other contracts when we free up some space, and then we'll get you on before training camp. Maybe that's why he hasn't signed somewhere else. I don't know that, but you know, it just
he has really no reason to be in a hurry, to be honest with you. Like he just needs to get in here. I would say get in here before training, you know, get in here right when training camp starts. That'd be the expectation. Especially if you want playing time and to show that you want to be here. You know, I don't think
with this team and the way that we've built it, right? We don't need him coming, you know, preseason game week 4, right? Like right before the season starts, just because he's been here before. I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like that either. So I don't think that that's going to happen, but you know, we'll see. If he does, the dollar amount the Lions pay might drop. Be like, oh, you're not worth as much right now, and we'll see. But I think he's going to be on the Lions. I'm hoping it's before training camp or very like first week of training camp he comes in. That's my bet. If he's going to make it, that's when it's going to happen. All right. Anything else you want to talk on that before we move to this PFF stuff?
No, let's do it.
All right. PFF rankings come out. They ranked each position group. We're going to kind of talk about the Lions players on this group, whether we think they're too high, too low, or anything else that in between here. And we'll just we're going to go from there. So do you want to start out with just naming where they're at by the position group, or how do you want to break this down?
I figure we'll just go by position group. We'll say where our guys ranked.
Okay.
And then, you know, maybe we'll go over like the top 1 or 2 people, or
okay.
We'll look at our NFC North opponents and see if anybody's ranked higher, you know.
Yep.
Just a quick discussion on each one, and then we'll talk about, you know, after.
All right, sounds good. So let's start out with quarterback, as we always do. Jared Goff coming in as number 9. Too high or too low, Jacob?
It feels too low when you say number 9, but then you look at most of the people above him. It was interesting for me that quarterbacks were rated in tiers also. So like they had, I think pretty much every position had 32 people. I don't know if they did 32 for receivers. I think all of them were 32.
Yep.
But for quarterback, they also had tiers. So like, tier 1 for quarterbacks, they had Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have tier 2 is called high-end starters. And the one that kind of rubbed me the wrong way is that Jaden Daniels is ranked higher than Jared Goff.
Yeah.
Now, if he pulls together another season like he had last year, then, I can see that happening. But to have him already rated higher based on that rookie campaign, it kind of feels like the CJ Stroud thing again, where, he had a really good year. Teams weren't sure how to play him and everything like that. But maybe pump the brakes a little bit, then putting him over some of these veteran guys. They had Jaden Daniels above Matthew Stafford, Justin Herbert, and then Jared Goff was tier 3, solid starters who have flashed high-end play. That's what they're calling that. Same tier as Geno Smith and Brock Purdy, if you're wondering.
Yep, those are the only 3 quarterbacks in that tier, tier 3. Then that's 3A. They have a 3B, which is solid starters but need more help, and that's where Jordan Love comes in, number 12. Ahead of Baker Mayfield. I'd take Baker Mayfield hands down over Jordan Love right now. I don't know where you feel on that. CJ Stroud is in that, so that's interesting. I don't know where in this list CJ Stroud would have been. I think he'd be in that Jaden Daniels spot last year going into this list, where everyone just think he's just going to ascend even further. And then his offensive line fell apart and he, did not look that good, frankly. And Jaden Daniels could fall in that boat, or, his running and he gets hurt or something like that. I mean, those things can happen. I'm not wishing that he get hurt. Don't take that way. But, when you have a running quarterback, things like that can happen. This feels like like a recency bias list right now, putting Jane Daniels as number 6. Even Matthew
Absolutely.
Stafford at 7 was interesting, because they're just, the first sentence is Stafford isn't coming off his best season, but his command of the offense is what keeps him there. You can't tell me that Jared Goff doesn't have a command of the offense of the Detroit Lions. He absolutely does. So I just, Matthew Stafford has the arm talent, and we've already probably talked about the Stafford and Goff stuff, but that kind of just threw me off when you're going to lead off with he isn't coming off his best season, start right away. And then Justin Herbert, we've talked about. I personally, I'd rather have Goff, especially on this offense, than Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert hasn't done much really in this league. He hasn't won much. And he keeps getting put up there because he's got an amazing arm talent, but he hasn't really won anything. So I don't know why he keeps putting really high on these lists.
You're right. It's just the arm. The arm's great. He's able to make plays. Just not in the clutch situations, not in the playoffs, not at the important times. It's not somebody that seems like a late game drive. Where when you have Jared Goff, you're pretty sure, like, okay, he's got full command of the offense. We're going to be moving the ball pretty effectively. We've got a chance to drive down and win. And I think if Justin Herbert's your quarterback, you're not so sure about that.
Exactly. One thing I wanted to say, I don't know if you went further down this list, but number 21 on this list is J.J. McCarthy, followed by Drake May, which I thought it was interesting that J.J.'s already ahead of Drake May, already ahead of Michael Penix Jr., but number 24 on this list, Caleb Williams. So they have J.J. McCarthy, who's never taken a snap in the NFL, already rated ahead of Caleb Williams. That's insanity to me.
That is one thing that rubbed me the wrong way about these lists is putting the rookies on there. Like, I guess if you're just projecting where they're going to be for the season, then, you can put that out there. But it does seem weird that you've got rookies, or in this case, J.J. McCarthy, never playing it down, and you've got him above,
Yeah.
Sam Darnold is ranked real low on here.
Yeah, Sam Darnold's ranked below Cam Ward. Sam Darnold's ranked 26. So
right,
we'll see. All right, man. Let's move on. running back's interesting, right? So, Jameer comes in at number 4. Derrick Henry's 1, Saquon's 2. This is where it goes a little. Bijan Robinson rated right ahead of Jameer Gibbs. Are you okay with that, or do you think Jameer deserves to be number 3?
Well, I can't be impartial here. I think that Gibbs should be higher, obviously, but it's funny because these two are going to be compared the entire length of their careers, right? Same draft class and everything like that. They're just going to be. I still feel like I would rather have Gibbs. I think Gibbs and Montgomery have a good thing going. 1A, 1B, Sonic and Knuckles thing. I still prefer Jahmyr Gibbs. Not saying that Bijan's not a great running back, and I see him being ranked 3, and I'm okay with that. I don't think that Gibbs is like too low or that, we were cheated out of something like that in this list.
Yeah.
What about you, though? I mean,
I want our guy to be higher, right? I mean, I think Jahmyr Gibbs has, I think part of this is they split time with David Montgomery. And so you never really get to see Jahmyr Gibbs just be the lead dog all the time. Now, that could change this year. I mean, I could see a situation where, Jahmyr Gibbs is given more. You got Jashard Choice as the running backs coach, obviously, very involved in Jahmyr Gibbs coaching all along the way. So it'll be interesting to see, if they give Gibbs a little more carries this year than Monty. But I don't think they're going to change too drastically. So uh, I'm not too upset about Bijan being up there, and you're right. They're always going to be compared just being in that same draft class. What's interesting, though, was what could have happened if the Lions wouldn't have traded out of 6 and taken Gibbs ahead of Bijan. That would have been very interesting. That would have made this conversation even more interesting to me.
or we always have this conversation like, yeah, Gibbs is good, but what if Bijan was on the Lions?
Yes.
Right? People wanted,
I know. If Bijan was on the Lions, I would be happy with that too, and I'd probably be okay with him being number 3 at that point. Truth be told, but yeah, I've seen he's a good back. There's no doubt about it. I also think like one guy. Where did Brees Hall get? Where did he drop to in this list?
Brees Hall is number 15 in the rankings.
15. You know what? With AG going to the Jets, they're going to be leaning more on him, and I could see him definitely keeping, moving up. Not to give away where I'm going to draft some of these guys in fantasy football in the leagues that we got together, but I look for Brees Hall to have a bounce back year on this. I would not be surprised to see, because like last year on these lists, Brees Hall was way up towards the top. He was probably in that 3 or 4 rank, right? And when you look at this list, Josh Jacobs, who's in our division's number 5, which I get, Bucky Irving 6. Number 7 is Christian McCaffrey, who's, if he's not injured last year, he's, is he supplanting Derrick Henry as number 1? Probably, and he could come back and have an awesome year. So I don't know.
Right. Maybe he's lost a step. We don't know yet.
Yeah, you certainly don't. You don't know what's going to happen in that offense, but I gotta say, he was just out for a year. Christian McCaffrey, he's going to work hard to get back to top level. So, but as he gets older, is he going to lose? Like you said, is he going to lose a step and tumble down here? I'm not. So
and he's already injury prone. That's not going to get any better as you get older. So
no, that's true. Kyron Williams moved down to number 10. I know he was. Like Ashton Genty's already at 13 on this list ahead of Jonathan Taylor. Any other surprises on here? Dave Montgomery is 21. So, and what's interesting, Tyler Algier, who is, Bijan's teammate, it's 22. So they're back to back. So they flip flopped them. They put the Lions guy ahead of the Falcons guy at the end of this list.
Yeah, anytime you see like top running back duos, usually the Lions are ranked number 1 in the league, but the Falcons are always up there too.
Yep.
Aaron Jones, though, Vikings running back, he was number 19.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was good. I think Dan Montgomery, especially if he's healthy, he's too low on this list. He's so good. He's just very underrated. I'm excited to have him back this year. But there was, ATN for Jaguars all the way at 32. I thought he might be a little bit higher.
Yeah, where's the Bears running back on this list?
I don't
Oh,
think
that's right. He
there
didn't
is a
make it.
Bears running back on this list. Yeah.
No, top 32, and he did not make that
Did not
list.
make it. We'll
Several
see.
teams had more than one player, so
Yeah. That means there's some teams that got left off, and the Bears are definitely one of those teams. All right.
all right.
Next position, wide receiver. Amon-Ra, tier 2, listed as number 4. You got any arguments with that?
No, not really. I mean, he's really high up there. He's one of the best receivers in the league. The people ahead of him right now, the only ones that are in tier 1 are Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. The only one that I have any kind of debate about would be AJ Brown. And they put AJ Brown number 1. He's like the number 1 wide receiver. You've always got that debate, Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. I also, in my opinion, would put CD Lamb up there. But CD Lamb actually is ranked number 6.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got Amon-Ra 4, Puka number 5, CD number 6.
I have no problem with Amon-Ra being number 4. However, would there be another wide receiver I want on this list ahead of Amon-Ra for this offense? No. I'm happy with Amon-Ra. So I mean, I think that the two things can be true. You could have wide receivers that maybe are just overall better talents, but maybe not fit the team the way you want. Now, AJ Brown, I think, is a phenomenal athlete, and I could see him. He can take over a game. His body type and where he's at, he can take over a game. Justin Jefferson is probably, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in the league, both as far as like personality and because that puts him ahead of Jamar Chase for me. Justin
Right.
Jefferson just seems like more of a team guy. I know that he looks flashy, but I don't. That wide receiver show showed me something about him that he's very grounded. And so I mean, I know he likes to, just do his dances and stuff like that, but I think he's very grounded and very team oriented. Whereas I don't think Jamar Chase would fall in that category for me. So, if I had to trade for any of these guys, it'd be Justin Jefferson would be, I would take, and then probably AJ Brown, and then I don't even know if I like Jamar Chase, but I don't even know if I really want a guy like that on my team, to be honest with you.
He makes it very difficult to root for him. Obviously, if you're just talking about the player and what he puts out on the football field, absolutely. It's the off the field stuff and the things that he says and the contract stuff. And right. No, I agree. It just like everything seems like a distraction.
Exactly. And I just can't get down with that. Now some of that might be the Bengals too, right? We might talk a little bit about that later on. The Bengals, how they deal with players and contracts. They're obviously Trey Hendrickson and, so some of that might be just the Bengals too. But
right.
I've also seen enough that, the making the guy take off the Amon-Ra jersey, that type of stuff just rubs you the wrong way. You know, on this list, we can go out. When these lists come out, obviously you and I probably both do the same thing. We scan for the Lions, right? Where are the Lions?
Right.
We had to go all the way to number 32, but JMO is on this list. Were you surprised to see JMO in the top 32, or is that where you expected, or is he too high, too low?
I would say surprised just to see that he actually, got that love that he deserves and got that recognition that I think that he deserves. I'm not surprised that he's a top 32 receiver in the league because I would put him higher than that probably. Especially look at some of these other names. Like I would rather have JMO than most of these other guys right in front of him right there. But yes, I was surprised to actually see him on this list. Not that he didn't deserve it, but just one of those things. Even with the great season that he had last year.
Yeah, this time next year, JMO going to be on the top half of this list, do you think?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm hoping so, right? I mean, that's the goal.
If all goes as planned.
That's what the coaches are talking about. However, as he gets higher up on these lists, so does that contract number.
Right.
Unfortunately.
No Packers on this list, but there was one other NFC North receiver. Number 20 is DJ Moore of the Bears.
Okay. I like DJ Moore. I could have him on. I think he'd be pretty good on this Lions team. He's very versatile. It'll be interesting to see what Ben Johnson does with DJ Moore, because they could do they like to do a lot of those wide receiver screens. but that's where a majority of the offense was coming for him last year. I look for Ben
Right.
Johnson to be a little bit, more inventive with him and get him into more space because he's definitely dangerous.
Yeah, I don't like thinking about that.
Gotta think about it though. All right, man. Next the one we'll talk about tight ends. We don't need to go as in depth on this one. Sam LaPorta is number 5. Number 6 was TJ Hawkinson. So obviously really close in this list. Sam, you think is too high or too low?
I think that's probably right.
I think that's
He
pretty
kind of
good.
had that, injury. He was battling injuries and everything last year. He still had a decent season. Not as good as his rookie season, but I think 5 is fair. With
Yeah,
the potential, he definitely has potential to be top 3 for sure.
yeah. Well, I think people asked, Sam and like one of the pressers earlier this year, like, were you disappointed about your numbers? And he's like, we were like the top offense in the league. We have so many weapons. Okay. This is just what happens. And I think you're going to see that. Yet, as some other players' numbers may dip, Sam's may go up. And some of it was due to injury. Some of it's just, how our team's playing them, and just, I could see Sam being higher on this list next year. But I'm happy with number 5. I mean, that's second round pick being your number 5 tight end in the league. Second, this will be his 3rd season. I'm okay with that. All right, let's talk about this offensive tackle. Penei Sewell, number 6. Morgan Cannon, if you're listening, I know we could probably hear you screaming right now. I was screaming when I saw that. He was the first person I thought of when I saw Penei Sewell, number 6. Is this ridiculous or what?
Obviously. When you first, it's funny because when offensive tackle came out and I clicked it, I was expecting to see him number 1, right? And then you're like, well, okay, like maybe number 2. And then you're like, okay, number 3. And then you're moving down. Like after number 3, it was like, this list is BS now. Like, this is completely invalidated.
I know.
And then you just keep going like 6.
I got 2 Eagles ahead of them. Tristan Wirfs, number 2, Tampa Bay, Rashawn Slater, who is in the same draft class as Sewell. The reasoning that they give is that he is arguably the best running block tackle in the league, but they had him, uh, 29th at the position in pass blocking. I don't know. I just don't see it. He is such a dynamic athlete, and it's insane to me that he's number 6 in this list.
All pro last year and everything. Like what? I don't get it.
Yep. Taylor Decker.
Not to say that the other tackles at the top of the list aren't good, because they're definitely,
yes,
and that's a tough position. You could make an argument for most of them, but I guess it's the same thing. I can't be impartial here.
No. Well, no. No, he's an all-pro for a reason. He's not number 6 on this list. Taylor Decker ends up being number 24 on this list. He's down
but
there.
Still on the list.
He's still on the list. Yep. Down with Braxton.
32
Jones,
tackles made it. Each team's got 2. So,
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. 2 Bears right after him. Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright. And let's see. Packers, Rasheed Walker, number 31. I think that might be all that is in. Oh, nope. Zach Tom is number 9 for the Packers. And then Christian Darrisaw, number 7 for the Vikings. Man, I'm still upset seeing Penei Sewell's number 6. Let's get off this one just because I'm so mad about it. Center, quickly. Frank would have been really high on this list. I don't know where he would have been. Probably top, 3, you think? Probably on this list.
Right.
Yeah.
I would have put, maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I don't know that you'd put him above Creed Humphrey, the center for the Chiefs, but
he's right.
He'd have been up there.
Yep. So right now we have Tate Ratledge is listed number 32 on this list. So we'll see where we're going to have, whether he's going to be our center or not. I'm not sure. But let's move on to defensive line. You got Aleem McNeil ranked 13 and DJ Reader 22nd. You okay with that, or is that Aleem a little too low? Or maybe injury has something to do with it too?
Maybe the injury has something to do with it. I don't know. I mean, I think that's probably pretty close. We're talking about overall across the league. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you look at some of these names that are above him, you're like, okay, he belongs up there with these guys, but I don't know that you can put him past most of them right now.
Yep. Vita Vea is rated at 11. Matabuke for the Ravens is right ahead of him at 12. Jeffrey Simmons is at number 9. Jalen Carter's 5. Quinnen Williams 4. Cam Hayward, Dexter Lawrence, and Chris Jones. So all those guys are deserving to be up there. I like what Aleem can offer for the Lions. So, and maybe, like you said, the injury might have something to do with them being on 13, but I think that's pretty properly ranked on there. DJ Reader would be interesting. He had a full off season of training. So, whether he's going to be back to kind of his old self, be higher than number 22 on the list. But regardless, great run stuffer, and that's what the lines are about there. And we'll see where Tyleek ends up. Maybe he'll be on this list next year.
Right. 2 Vikings really late on this list, but there's no Packers and there's no Bears on here. Jonathan Allen was ranked 29 and Javon Hargrave was number 30.
Yeah, we'll be able to run right out the middle on these guys, right? That's
yeah.
the goal. Edge. Aiden Hutchinson comes in at number 5, which I think might be a tad low, but based on where he was last year, on record-setting pace. But maybe the injury has something to do there. Are you okay with him being number 5, or you think he should be higher?
I mean, every time we have this discussion, it's like obviously Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, then Hutchinson. Right after him, you've got Max Crosby, who's also up there too. I mean, if he didn't get injured, I think Hutchinson would probably be up there. Maybe he's number 1, 1, 2, 3, somewhere along the. I mean, he'd be higher than 5 at the rate that he was going. Yes. So obviously, we hope that he goes back to that form and keeps it up. I'm not going to complain about having a top 5 edge defender right now.
No. It's interesting. Max is number 6. I'm pretty sure Max was ahead of Aiden last year at this time. Trey Henderson at 7 and TJ Watt, number 3, both kind of having some contract issues, right? Hopefully Aiden gets his figured out. I know Aiden's not having any contract issues, but we're just hoping to get his extended in. What's interesting is number 29 on this list is a free agent, and that's someone we talked about a little bit earlier, Zadarius, right?
Right. Potential. Hopefully another Detroit Lion on this list.
Exactly. Linebacker, I don't really want to talk too much about that, but Jack Campbell shows up as number 8 on that list, which is good. Cornerback, we could talk about DJ Reed. Surprising for me, he was up number 6 on this list. Were you surprised by that?
I was. He had a really good year last year, but I was not expecting a top 10 ranking on there, so that was cool to see.
Yeah, especially when you go down, Carlton Davis is number 18 on this list. So based on this list, they really consider this an upgrade. One thing that I thought, number 16 is Quinion Mitchell. Was in that draft class with, Terrion Arnold, which, it's pretty interesting.
And Cooper DeJean was number 11.
Yeah. I know. What a good draft class by them. But hopefully Terrion shows up on this list, and I have a feeling that he's going to show out this year. So hopefully he's on this list. But our old friend Darius Slay is still on this list, number 21. Pretty interesting.
Big play Slay.
Exactly.
Still kicking, man.
I know. It's awesome for him. Safety. I want to talk a little bit about this. All right. You would expect the guy who led the league in interceptions, all pro, to be top 3 at least. Kirby Joseph is not top 3. What is it with number 6? Same thing with Penei Sewell. He is number 6. I don't agree with this at all. How about you?
Yeah, it's just another one that doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
I don't. He was Pro Football Focus top ranked safety last year. So they had the numbers out there. He was number 1 rated 1, and now you're going to drop him to 6.
Yeah.
And then you look at the people above him, like they've got Kyle Hamilton, number 1, great safety, complete safety. I understand. And then Xavier McKinney, number 2.
Yeah.
Why? I just don't understand. Kirby Joseph is a better version of Xavier McKinney. He just, is a step above where he was pretty much the entire year last year. So I don't understand. Maybe it's just because I think McKinney's been in the league a couple years longer than Kirby Joseph. I don't know. I don't know what that is. Jesse Bates, number 3, another good safety. Then Antoine Winfield, number 4.
Yeah.
Antoine Winfield had a terrible year last year.
Yeah. Well, who's number 5 on that list? Brian Branch, who's rated ahead of Kirby, which, okay, we know what type of player Brian Branch is, right? But definitely Kirby needs to be higher on this list. I just think they're not giving him very much respect on that. I don't get it. A safety who I really like, who's number 8 in this list, Buda Baker. I think that he could be higher too. I just like the way he plays. But yeah, I think Kirby just needs to be higher. We have the best safety combo in the league. I would like to see Kirby just get a little more respect than he's getting on this list.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have an issue with Kyle Hamilton. I get Jesse Bates. Antoine Winfield needs to be dropped down a little bit. And then Xavier McKinney, I feel like, should be dropping down.
Exactly. That's who
I
put
Kyle Hamilton. And then, you know what? If you're not talking about last year, if you're talking about the year that's about to happen, maybe you put Brian Branch number 2. And then you put Kirby number 3. Or maybe even if you say Jesse Bates 3, then Kirby number 4.
He needs to be.
Time will tell, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. He can have the last laugh. And one thing that wasn't in this article, but I thought it was interesting while we're talking about PFF, they last week they came out with a breakout team of 2025, and one Lions was listed on there, and it was Christian Mahogany. So that they're seeing some potential there, which would be nice. We definitely need one of these guys to break out this season, and that would be great if it was Mahogany.
absolutely.
All right, let's move on to
real quick before we move on, because I was trying not to ask this question when we were talking about it because I just want to wait. But in your opinion, do you think these Pro Football Focus rankings are as accurate as they used to be? Or do you think this system has kind of become tainted and unreliable? When you see certain things like that, which obviously in this case, this was written by one person. This is one person for Pro Football Focus, and this is his rankings ahead of the season. So maybe it's not Pro Football Focus as a company as a whole. This is not something they all voted on. Like maybe this is just one guy's thing. But just in general, sometimes like I remember, I think it was week 1 last year. It was early on last year where it was like right away, it was apparent to me that Brian Branch was all over the field and he was killing it. And I was really excited about where the year was going to go. And then Pro Football Focus ranked him as like the worst defender on the Lions, whatever week that was. I don't know if you remember when that happened. But then, it just seems like time and time again, a lot of things that we're seeing and, most people are saying and most people are judging, Pro Football Focus has swayed one way or another. And some of these guys that have been in the league longer or, just have different, I guess it's almost like the popularity contest thing. Like these numbers sort of get tainted or skewed where now these guys are consistently higher ranked. Do you feel like this is, it's become too big and now it's become tainted?
I think it's always been questionable because, I mean, anytime you come up with an algorithm or whatever you come up with, it's going to have some sort of bias with it. I think part of the reason why I think some people take PFF as gospel too much, like, oh, you're the 17th rate center. Well, I don't know how much that means. It's if you talk to any like Dave Phipp or any of the football guys, they laugh at PFF stuff. Like that doesn't tell you anything because there's so much more in-depth stuff. I think sometimes PFF, it seems like lately they're trying to be like the smartest guy in the room type stuff instead of just looking at the obvious and saying, okay, Kirby Joseph led the league in interceptions. His, coverage rate was extremely high. We rate him as the number 1 safety. He's young. It's not like he's losing a step. Why would he be number 6 on the list? I don't get it. So it's just another thing that we could look at, we could talk about. You can use somewhat just to get a ballpark on some players, or maybe learn to like, hey, maybe I need to take a second look at this player if they're ranking him so high. But if you take any of these ratings as gospel, then you're probably doing a disservice to your podcast or whatever else you're talking about, because I think there's just a lot more to go into it. I've looked into the DVOA numbers and stuff that, Jeremy and stuff look at POD, and I'm kind of interested in those because they grade each play individually, which is pretty interesting way of looking at things. But it's hard to, I haven't done enough studying to really know whether their numbers are any more reliable than PFF.
Who comes up with that? The DVOA thing.
DVOA is it's the Fantasy Sports Network, I think is it.
Okay.
And so they use it live for like fantasy sports, but since they grade each individual plays, then they go in and they do some team grades. And so some of that stuff like matches the eye test for me, because that's a lot of things like, like you said, you saw Brian Branch is all over the place and all of a sudden he's ranked 32nd. Well, they're not watching the same game that I am. So when I watch, as much football as you and I both watch, and then I see rankings, and then I'll be like, okay, well, that makes sense with what I'm seeing. And so I kind of like it from that angle. Like it matches my eye test as far as like, and not that I'm, whatever. I mean, I just watch about football. I mean, I don't think that I'm an expert by any means. There's a ton of people that know more about football than I do, but it's for someone that watches a lot of football and matches my eye test.
Yes.
All right. Let's talk the simple question. Is Dan Campbell the greatest head coach in Lions history? We'll start there. Jacob, is it too soon to say it yet, or do you think he's the best one?
I mean, this is more, I guess it's a harder question for you because you remember some of the older and you remember, I guess, some moderate success or something like that. I don't really, in my lifetime since I've been watching the Lions, I've not had too many, even winning seasons or memorable coaches. So that's why, especially the way the city, the turnaround and everything like that, feels like he's already up there with what he's been able to build.
I think
most other Lions coaches, what'd you say?
I said the easy answer is yes, that he is the best coach. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Well, that's why I was trying to get your opinion on it, because some of the older people, like I see these names on the list, like he's second in playoff wins already, second in total playoff games he's even played in. He's got the fourth best winning percentage, best record in team history last year. And then he ranks 8 right now in total wins as Lions head coach. But I see some of the names above him, and like a couple of them are like before the Super Bowl era, but not all of them were. And it was people that I don't remember, and I can't say, because I wasn't around. I wasn't into it. I don't know how great of a head coach these other guys were.
Well, I could tell you that in my experience, like this is a very subjective view. I mean, I noticed you just did some objective numbers, but I'll tell you, subjective view. I've never went into a game or a season more confident with a coach than I ever had in my existence with the Lions. As far as feeling comfortable, I've been around, like there's been some really good teams with the Lions have had over the years, and I've never went in thinking we're going to win this game. I feel very confident that we're going to win this game. I would always have a doom and gloom attitude because that's what seemed to follow the Lions around, right? Lions have gotten past that, and I think that's what makes Dan Campbell the best coach, at least in my lifetime. As far as he's established a winning attitude. I know culture is the word, right? But he's established a winning attitude. We're going to go in and win this game. We expect to win this game. We don't expect to go into any week losing. We, last year with all the injuries, he still gets the best the most wins in Lions history last year. And it's not just because we had 17 games. He was going to break that record regardless. But getting 15 wins is unbelievable. And you talked about he's fourth in winning percentage. Well, he's also fairly young in his Lions career still, that those first like year and a half that he lost, what did he lose? Like he was like 3-19 or 4-19 in those first year and a half. That's playing a big part. If he keeps having these winning seasons, that winning percentage is going to turn around. It's easy answer for me. He is the best coach, the most confident I've been in a coach. It's early. He still needs to win a Super Bowl here. But as soon as he does that, that'll just cement it even further.
Right. Well, but I mean, to what you just said, he needs to win a Super Bowl here. Nobody else has.
No,
if he was to
exactly.
win a Super Bowl here, if and when he wins a Super Bowl here, then obviously this is not even a discussion.
Yeah.
But it's never happened before, so that's where that's where you're lying right now. That's a good point that each week when we go in, you do feel like, okay, we're going to make it happen. Even when the game's not going well, like we got to dig deep here. We got to make something happen. We're going to, we always feel like we're going to find a way to pull it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of the stuff that's driven by Dan Campbell too, as far as the aggressiveness, getting the great coaches in here and not just being like a coordinator merchant. He's getting these coaches to come here and they all talk super highly of him. It's no secret that he manages the offseason well too, getting the right coaches, getting them in place, but then he knows the game of football and I think a lot of these coaches are put in positions to win because Dan Campbell is very clear on what it's going to take to win this game, and he gets his coaches to prepare to get the players prepared.
Absolutely. Just the other coaches, because obviously when I see some of these names, the three that are above him in winning percentage are all people pre-Super Bowl era.
Okay.
Number one winning percentage right now is a coach named Potsy Clark, and he won a championship. He coached from 31 to 40. But anyway, if we're going more recent here, Jim Caldwell, I actually liked when Jim Caldwell was the coach. I did not like when we got rid of Jim Caldwell. And obviously what happened next didn't help that either. But so Jim Caldwell coached 64 games. He went 36 and 28. And right now where Dan Campbell is, he's coached 68 games. He's 39 and 28. So, very similar records. Jim Caldwell had a couple playoff years as well, but the team just obviously overall feels much different, much better now than it was with Caldwell.
Well, the advantage that Campbell has that Caldwell didn't is general manager and just getting better overall talent in here. I think Caldwell is probably the closest to Campbell as far as like the players wanting to play for Caldwell and wanting to play for Campbell. It feels similar. I think Dan Campbell is better in game management and just overall preparing for an opponent better and getting better coaches in here. I think that's our Dan Campbell is better than Jim Caldwell.
Yes, absolutely. The surrounding coaching staff for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who's coached the most games in Lions history?
Is it Wayne Fonts? Is it?
It is.
Yeah.
Wayne Fonts, 133 games.
Yeah.
He went 66 and 67.
Yeah, and that's what it felt like too. Before you even said that record, we would have like a winning season and then be terrible, and then have a winning. It was like every other year with them. Whether he'd have been the coach as long without Barry Sanders, I don't know, because we won a lot of those games just because how dynamic Barry was. It just makes me long to have like if Dan Campbell could have coached Barry Sanders and just got him a championship. I just think that guy deserved that. All right, you ready to move into the Blitz, man?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm ready.
All right, I'm gonna hit the thing.
It's time for the Honolulu Blitz.
All right, first question here. How many game-winning drives did Matthew Stafford have for the Lions?
For his entire career with the Lions.
Yeah, yep, just with the Lions.
Let's see.
Got to remember, we had to win games for him to have a game-winning drive.
Right. But I mean, it felt like he did it semi-frequently. Oh, man.
Do you think it's above or below 40?
I was thinking closer to 30.
Okay.
That's why I'm going to say 34.
Pretty close, 38.
Okay.
So right about there. So, yep, not bad. I
was thinking 30, and then you said above or below 40. I was like, oh, man, I might be way off.
What's funny is I should have looked up his overall wins because, it just
half
feels
his
like
wins
we only won games that Stafford came back. I know there was that one season that was like basically every game the Lions came back in the fourth quarter. So I thought that was interesting. All right. on the all-time Lions sack list, what place is Aiden Hutchinson right now?
An all-time Lions sack. I'll say number
Yeah.
6.
You think so? Nope. He is actually 21st right now
21st.
at 28.5. He is Ndamukong Suh is ahead of him right now. Ndamukong Suh is number 16. So he has 28.5 sacks. Number 1 on this list is Alex Karras with 100. Robert Porcher, who some of our listeners.
That's who I was thinking Porcher would put him number 1. So
Yeah,
number 1 at how many? 100 exactly?
100 exactly. But also, I'm curious, like where they got that stat for, because I don't think they really kept sack stats. Like Alex Karras played between 1958 and 1970, so I don't know if that's retroactive that they got that. But Robert Porcher had 95 and a half, so he's number 2.
Sacks became a statistic in 1982.
Yeah, so I don't. So that this list is from
Still, he's
yes
a lot lower than 6.
Number 10 on this list is Ansa was 48.
I didn't feel that way.
Yeah. Cliff Avrill's number 11 with 39 and a half. Now I know Averill had.
I liked Averill.
Yeah, I liked Averill too. He was.
I liked Ziggy Ansah too. It just was like,
yeah,
didn't work.
Well, did not. And big baby Sean Rogers, number 19 on this list, right ahead of Aiden with I guess Aiden Hutchins is tied for 20 with 28.5. Sean Rogers has 29. So he'll pass him this year. So all right. Opinion question. Who has more rushing yards this year, Saquon or Jameer?
Oh man. I would still say Saquon. I mean, Saquon. Gibbs is still going to have, he's still going to be splitting with Montgomery, which I'm completely fine with. He doesn't need to lead the league in rushing. I'd say it's close, but I'm going to say Saquon still would be above.
Saquon's getting hurt this year. I'm going Gibbs.
Why are you wishing that?
I'm not wishing that. He's going to get hurt this year. This is just
what were the final numbers last year? Like it just rushing.
I think Gibbs had 1,400 and Saquon was 2,000. So he's 600 ahead of him.
Right.
Yep. All right. So my shirt today, if you're watching live, it's, Scott's Tots, The Office. I wore that in honor of Jacob for his favorite show. What is your favorite episode of The Office?
Oh my God. That's tough, man. I can't think of a favorite
Or
episode.
If you don't want to do a favorite episode, a favorite scene. If you can't think of an episode.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is when they, when Dwight does the safety, he makes the fire and then, there's all the panic and everything like that, which then culminates in the thing with the CPR dummy and he cuts the face off the dummy and everything. Yeah. That's the first thing that came to mind. I really like that show. There's way too many moments and everything. I still will watch it through and I'll still crack up laughing at certain parts.
Oh,
not the Scott's Tots episode. That's cringe, but yes.
Yes. I cannot watch that episode anymore. I have to walk out of the room in certain parts of that thing. I can't for Scott's Tots. My favorite 2 things in The Office, if it's just for me, is I like when it's very early in the thing where they're doing going through all the pranks that Jim has done to Dwight, and then one of the things he says was, and I hit myself in the phone or hit myself in the face with a phone today, and that's all he says, and you're like, how can that be a thing? And then Jim's like, I put quarters in the phone one at a time, and then I just took them out. That's just diabolical. And then also the fact when they dressed up as each other for that one episode where Jim came in dressed up as Dwight, and then at the end of the episode, Dwight came in dressed up as Jim. That's hilarious.
That is
all
good.
Right.
Last question. I thought of another one though. I like it is when Dwight goes to Jan behind Michael's back. So then Michael knows that he did it, but Michael lets him think that Jan just let him, become manager.
Yes.
And especially because there's that running gag that he thinks he's assistant regional manager, and they always say assistant too.
Yeah.
Well, then Michael's like, "Congratulations, you are now the new regional manager." and I will assume your role of assistant regional manager, and then Dwight right away is assistant to the regional manager.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
That I like when Mike has them that time too. Yeah, that's a very good episode. All right, last question. There's summer movies coming out this summer. What one are you looking more forward to, Superman or Fantastic Four?
It's funny. We actually were just talking about that we need to try to get to the drive-in. It's like, well, what movie would we even go see in the drive-in that's coming out soon? Because none of them are jumping out at me as like, man, I've got to get to the movie theater. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, you know that. So those are the kind of the only movies anymore that we jump to. I guess if I'm picking between Superman and Fantastic Four, I would rather see Fantastic Four. But I do want to see Superman too. I think that hopefully it's still going to be a good movie. I probably will not see that one in the theater. What about you though? Are you planning on seeing both or?
Superman for sure. I'm a big Superman guy, and James Gunn. I'm interested to see what he does with the character. I actually really liked Man of Steel, the Zack Snyder stuff. So but I'm not an either or type guy. I think that they both can be right, and they both can do cool Superman stuff. Fantastic Four, I am interested in seeing, especially after Thunderbolts is good. I'm hoping that Marvel's kind of on an upswing. But if you're going up for the two of these, I'm going with Superman. That's the one I'm more looking forward to.
Yeah, Fantastic Four has just failed so many times. Every time they try to do Fantastic Four, it's just not right. It doesn't work, whether it's just the cast or the movie. It just like, for some reason, they just keep missing. And like you just said, it's kind of a crucial time for Marvel. They're leading into, the Avengers thing coming back and all that. So it's definitely been well thought out and well planned, but we'll see how the execution goes.
Yes. They're kind of doing this in a different time period, so I think it's going to be a different universe, which is probably a smart move for Fantastic Four. The thing is, it's so weird about these characters is you're gonna, if Fantastic Four was here all along, you'd have to have some weird reason why they didn't show up for any of these other major world events. So setting them up in a different universe makes sense. It's kind of like when they start getting with the mutants, getting X-Men in here, you're gonna have to show like where were they this whole time that all these major events were happening? Were they in hiding? It'll be interesting how Marvel moves.
I mean, they've got all this multiverse stuff because then that's been the discussion once they came out with Captain Marvel. It's like, well, if she's really so unstoppable, where has she been this whole time? Why is she just coming up? And then, well, how did we lose if we had Captain Marvel? People dig way too deep into that.
Yes, they do.
So but because this is whatever, happened a long time ago in a different alternate parallel universe doesn't mean they're not going to pop up in, the Avengers or a different movie coming.
Yeah, I think something that kind of gets cheap with some of the stuff is like then with the multiverse stuff. And I do like that on a certain level, but on another level, it's like, okay, well, they could bring a different Black Widow, and then that kind of cheapens her death in, Avengers Endgame. And so,
how are they bringing Robert Downey Jr. is now Dr. Doom? Is that a different version of Stark, or what are they doing with that? Like, there's not going to mention it and just have him be a different. I don't care for time travel. I don't care for multiverse stuff.
Okay.
Although I really liked the way they did with the Spider-Man movie.
Okay. Well, yes, I like time travel in a just an idea, but the execution of so many of these things just is a cheap plot device, and that's what I didn't like about was it Endgame? Was that the one with because what was there was a two-parter. What was the Avengers, the first one?
Infinity War is the one where the blip thing happened, and then Endgame I think is when they came back in.
Yeah, and so like you're wondering how they're gonna fix all that, and then they do Endgame, and they do the time travel stuff in there, which kind of just felt like it was cheating. So that's the problem with time travel.
I told you I hate the time travel stuff.
Yeah,
and the whole blip thing. Like, okay, 5 years went by, and then the blip. Now the people that were gone are back exactly where they were before, and now everyone's got to adjust to life. That's just weird to me. I don't know. I didn't care for it, but I still like the movies.
Well, Infinity War was an amazing movie. Endgame, it was good, and I liked it, but it I think it could have could have went a different route.
Exactly. Could have been different.
Now I'm gonna. I know you said we talked a little bit about time travel. I still think Back to the Future is one of the best movies of all time, and that is all time travel. Now I don't know if you feel that way or not, but Back to the Future is just is awesome to me.
There's some serious flaws with Back to the Future also, but I think I told you that one time at work. Like I wanted my family. Deanna had never seen Back to the Future either.
Yeah.
It's like I really want you guys to see this movie because I hadn't seen it in years, but it was something like it was always such a really good movie to me. And then we're watching Back to the Future, and they say a lot of cuss words, which I did not pick up on before. But every single time one came up, Milo was counting how many times they cussed. JJ could not get over the fact that he went back in time and his mom is just hitting on him repetitively, and he keeps having to turn his mom down. He's like, "What kind of movies do you watch if this is one of your?"
I know.
So it was hard to fight that.
Yeah, and that is a hilarious part. Going back on it, it's a weird choice that you wonder like how that got through like the studio heads. Like, okay, so wait. The mom's hitting on his son. Like, do we have incest in this movie?
She was too aggressive about it.
Yeah.
I get what they were trying to convey. She was trying to tell him, back when she was a kid, she wasn't like that. And she was a proper, and they were trying to say, oh, she wasn't.
Yeah.
That's fine. She could have not did that to him.
Yeah, exactly. But no, great. That's one of the greatest movies of all time. I know you're picking it apart there or whatever, but it's funny. My kids loved it. My kids love like all three of the Back to the Future. So it's interesting that your kids are on the
My family's a bunch of haters, man.
Apparently. But you're
just watched.
So you raised a bunch of haters.
There you go. Maybe that's what it is. I've taught them to dissect everything too much.
Mm-hmm.
We watched Waterboy the other day. Finally, I watched that with JJ. He's finally old enough to watch Waterboy. Yeah, right. No, and he liked it. So we're moving on from there.
Too. I was like, oh my God, are they going to think this is the stupidest movie ever? But no, Preston really liked it. The part where he's like, and she showed me her boobies.
Yes.
And I was like, oh no.
And I like them too.
And I like, you're not the devil. The Colonel Sanders part is hilarious.
Yeah,
that,
right.
I knew he gets like some of the slapstick stuff, but I thought, but Preston maybe turn on the subtitles because he could not understand what Adam Sandler was trying to say.
Yeah. We watch with a lot of subtitles just, because we can't have it can't have the volume too high anyway.
Yeah.
But, I don't even. It's funny because we do it so much now that I almost have to have subtitles. Otherwise, I can't hear it. But there's a part where, he's in his own head and he's imagining different things. And he says something. I forget exactly what he says to him. Or he was like, she's not the devil, you're the devil. And then it shows like it's not the mom on it anymore. It's the actual quarterback for their team.
Yeah.
And he was like, I never said she was the devil. He's like, please don't hurt me.
He's like, oh, I like when Henry Linker is like, Gatorade's better. And then he's like, what? He's like, use it on the field. He's like, water sucks. Really, really sucks.
Yes. No, I was very, every time I turn on one of those old movies now, I'm like, please don't hate this. One, please don't hate it because you want your kids to enjoy it, right? Jade is 14 now, so it's like he gets some of the references and now he can hear a little bit more. I want him to enjoy it and everything like that, but I also don't want him to hate it and then crap on it and then make it to where I don't like it or that I feel different about it. Like now I can't enjoy it because you're talking about how lame it is. I've got several movies on the roster to watch with him.
Have you done Happy Gilmore with them yet?
So we actually talked about that instead of Waterboy. I was like, let's wait because they're coming out with another Happy Gilmore and then we can watch this like right before the new one comes out.
Yeah, we've watched Happy Gilmore. They really like it. And then Happy Gilmore 2 is coming out, and not to spoil it, but it's in the trailer. Eminem's in Happy Gilmore 2. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I thought that I saw like a rumor or something, but he was in the trailer.
He's in the trailer.
Really see, I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah, if he's in there, I won't ruin it anything if you want to see the trailer. But he's in there, so I was like looking forward to seeing him and that stuff. So, all right, man. We've been going at it.
The last 20 minutes were not Lions related. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's some around the league stuff, but we're going to kind of save that for the future. I think we've kind of went on and, we got some good stuff. Definitely got to talk about Aaron Rodgers signing with the Steelers at some point. The Browns quarterback situation. We're going to talk about that. And then a thing that you and I both are interested in is the Bengals rookie, Shamar Stewart, in a contract dispute with the Bengals. So we're gonna get into that at some point in the future. So you got that to look forward to.
Hopefully next episode, because maybe it'll be resolved before too long. So
Yeah,
we want to get on
then,
that.
Jair Alexander getting released by the Packers, I thought was interesting too. Great player, but just couldn't be on the field enough, right?
Right. And now that's another, kind of contract is he going to be looking for? Obviously, they couldn't work out. They tried to trade him, couldn't work out a trade that they liked. So, what kind of deal is he going to be getting from a team?
Exactly.
Do you want him in Detroit?
Oh no! I mean, would I want to play? We're not gonna be able to afford him, and I don't think we have a place on the field for him. But yeah, I mean, the talent is there, obviously, but he's just
Right.
not. It's not going to work out. And I don't know. I guess I don't know enough about him as a player. I mean, I know like talent as a player, but as a person, I guess I don't know if he'd mesh well with the team. But I just don't see that even remotely a possibility for the Lions, unless an injury were to happen.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. Knock on hardwood, right? All right. All right, man.
And there's the lame joke for the day.
Exactly. So, all right, man. Anything else before we take off here?
No, man, I'm good.
All right. It's good talking football with you again, Jacob. For Jacob, I'm Jason. Let's go, Lions.